Welcome to another episode of The Brand Called You, a podcast and podcast show that brings you leadership lessons, knowledge, experience, and wisdom from thousands of successful individuals from around the world. I'm your host, Ashutosh Garg, and today I'm delighted to welcome a very senior, accomplished, and respected professional from Mumbai, India, Mr. Shashi Sinha. Shashi, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Ashutosh.
Shashi is a quintessential salesman and a perpetual student of marketing. He has been the chief business officer in media and advertising, and he's an expert in airports, branding, and marketing. So, Shashi, before we get into media and advertising, tell me about your journey and how has airport advertising evolved in the past decade?
So, my journey into professional life started actually with when I got into the Times School of Marketing, pursuing my postgraduate diploma in marketing management.
Mhm.
And that was the first time I was introduced to the inner workings of this industry called media. And of course, it was the largest news organization, Bennett Coleman Group.
Yeah.
And I worked there for about 10 years. And then I worked with radio, I worked with digital. In 2008, my romance with out of home started.
Okay.
And when I came into this medium, I realized that it had unfolding potential, but those potentials were not encashed. And that love has continued to grow. I have done a lot of work, managed a lot of business, developed body of knowledge, and out of home is finding a new relevance.
Well said. Well said. So let's talk a little bit now about the world that you are an expert in, which is media and advertising. My first question is, what are some of the unique challenges and opportunities in managing airport media compared to other forms of outdoor or out-of-home advertising?
So, first challenge is the most remunerative advertising category is FMCG, television. Today, digital is making a lot more money, but digital also is a display, visual display medium. Television makes a lot of money. So very large segment of advertiser, FMCG, others like retail, others like education, they don't prefer airport. And therefore, a large chunk of advertising revenue remains outside the ambit of airports. So that is one challenge, I will say. A lot more money we don't have an access to. Opportunities, of course, airport is a fantastic advertising destination because it opens a very high quality media aperture. So, media aperture is defined as that susceptible moment when audience is absolutely susceptible to receive the advertising messages and depends on time, place, and state of mind. Airport, people have a lot of time. The place is very indulgent. It makes you feel very secure. And a state of mind, you have a state of mind, and the opulent environment of the airport induces a very, very receptive state of mind. So airport is a fantastic advertising destination.
Okay. And Shashi, what are some of the common misconceptions about advertising at airports, and how do you address them?
The biggest misconception is that people think an airport is an amorphous whole. An airport is an airport. And many of my media practitioner colleagues, those who are planning media, buying media, operating in this media world, most of them do not have this appreciation that airport is a granular place. There are more, but there are at least four very distinct zones. Domestic departure, domestic arrival, international departure, international arrival.
Right.
You will never access airport as a whole. If you are on domestic departure tract, that's the only part you can access. You can't go into domestic arrival area. You can't get into international area. So when you design your advertising program, you should not be planning it for the airport. You should be planning it for domestic departure, domestic arrival, international departure. This is the basic.
Very interesting. Very defined segmentation is what you're telling me about this.
Yes,
Is it?
yes.
And it's also often said that location of your advertisement is very important at airports.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about this, and what are some of the more important locations?
So, out of home media is demography neutral. We say बच्चे बूढ़े और जवान outdoor देखें एक समान. It is visible to everybody. But advertising is always with a purpose.
Correct.
It seeks to elicit a response. It seeks to bring some cognitive or perceptual or behavioral change in you. Out of home media works on psychography. And in airport, in different zones on this path of journey, the psychographies are different. The level of anxiety is different. And if you are on a domestic departure, you have a certain mindset, you have a certain objective of traveling. If you are on arrival, you have a certain mindset because you are either coming back home or visiting some city. If you are on an international circuit, you have similarly in check-in hall, the anxiety level is very high. But in frisking zone, it comes down. And in security hold area, which is after security you've gone, it is almost zero. And the passenger has so much time, they want to indulge around. The biggest thing is when people are out of home, they are always out of home with a purpose. At airport, the purpose is traveling, but it starts becoming evanescent as you complete the process and get near to the boarding gate. So this audience is free of a purpose, ready to be indulged.
Fascinating. And Shashi, tell me, how do you approach the challenge of advertising to international travelers with very diverse cultures and backgrounds?
That is true. International advertiser is very diverse and come from different cultural milieu. But you know what? What is truly, strictly personal is universal. If you look at the fundamental of human needs or obsessions or dreams, they are more or less similar. But here in international, our problem is that markets are defined national level, state level, city level, etc. And unless you are an international hub airport like Frankfurt or Dubai or something, they don't get a global advertising budget. We smaller airports, unless you are a big international hub, you have to play with the national budget of that country. The person is going out in this wide world, in some other markets, in some other, the marketing managers think that why should I spend my budget and someone else gains the benefit of purchase if it takes place out of this interaction.
Right.
That's
Well said. Great response.
Thank you.
And my next question, Shashi, is what strategies have proven most effective in engaging a diverse airport audience?
So, airport enjoys very high degree of credibility.
Right.
In this era of non-curated media, so much of information is coming to us. We don't read newspaper, we don't watch TV, but still we seem to be aware of everything. But what we are not realizing that we are consuming a lot of non-curated content. In this, and therefore there is lots of misinformation, disinformation, fake news, and propaganda, and what have you. In this milieu, airport has emerged as a very highly credible source of information. It is curated. A responsibility can be fixed. The airport director or the airport CEO can be prosecuted if he is allowing a dispersion of false information. So that is this. And then, of course, because people have different level of anxiety and they are constantly interacting with the environment, because most of the time they are in an unfamiliar environment, they need signages to guide them which gates to go, which path to go. And that is where our advertising it provides them visual relief, color relief, by making the ambient capable of mitigating this pressure. We make advertising interesting.
Interesting. You know, a few minutes back, you mentioned bache, boodhe aur jawan dekhe sab ek saman.
Outdoor
And yet,
dekhe.
outdoor, but yet, Shashi, in advertising, demographic factors like age, gender, uh, purpose of travel influence airport advertising strategies, I'm sure. What are your thoughts on how should advertisers handle all these diversities?
They handle it well. There are seasonality, and during the different season, the skew of what is the median characteristic of the audience at an airport changes. Like summer vacations will start, a lot more families, people who are categorized as VFF travelers with friends and families, they will suddenly swell. You will have more women, you will have more children, you will have more older parents, etc., traveling. So, and then there will be lean seasons from holiday perspective. So you will have more of business travelers coming in. More of business travelers means there will be a particular age where you will see this a skew, sex there you will see a skew, journey time you will see a skew. So these are the ways to kind of adjust to this demographic skew that we get during different seasons at an during the afternoon time. Afternoon flights generally don't have business travelers. They have these VFF. These are the ways. And we do that. And we do that.
Yeah. And I suppose technology is now ensuring that, you know, your limited number of screens, say in an airport, are able to adjust advertising based on the timings and, you know, so
the
afternoon is different.
The destination, as I said, the skew of demographics, where you're coming from, where you're going to. Of course, digital has given us a lot more flexibility.
Well said. The other point that I've often wondered is that what are some of the key factors in choosing the right brands and products to advertise in airport spaces? Because I'm sure airport owners have a decision on what to allow.
That is true, of course. Coming clearly, we say don't allow political advertising. Okay, government can promote their programs and their schemes, but generally, like election season is there, airports hardly make any money from these political campaigns, because we don't generally allow that.
Yeah.
Some of these hazardous ads like pan masala, etc., we don't allow that. Some of these selectively offensive, some people may take objection to lingerie ads, etc. We don't allow. And some of these things, your online betting kind of a situation. So these are the things we don't allow, because we have to maintain our credibility. We are responsible. And of course, we know that we are serving the top 2% of any country's population.
Correct. Well said. Shashi, with the rise of digital media, how do you see the role of physical advertising spaces in airports changing?
Physical, what it does, it has a very sharply defined value proposition. Because you have only so much of a space, you get 4 seconds. So there is one message which you want to kind of transmit. And this cacophony of too much happening in too little time, static advertising is finding a new significance for itself. Of course, digital has a lot of advantages, and people are exploiting that. But in this milieu, static has also come up with its own very highly utilitarian function. There is one proposition which you simply transfer, and there is not much clutter to kind of attenuate what is the centrality of your message.
Thank you. The next question for you is, can you discuss the process of integrating new technologies, such as augmented reality and virtual reality, into airport advertising?
Yes, because it is a confined area, and we have captive audience. We have beautiful ambience. We have places where people kind of aggregate. We have places where people are just passing through, and this entire ambience is under our control. There is almost no external interference as you would have in traffic on a road, or in a mall or wherever. It's a very regulated place. And we have done fantastic work integrating some AR, VR, etc. in some of our airports. Delhi has done, Bangalore has done, and it lends itself to this kind of media integration extremely beautifully.
And yet another perspective I thought I'd get your views on is that with all of us carrying our small little handheld devices, there is the airport advertising is now competing with our handheld devices, and a lot of the young people probably don't even look up to see what is there. So how do you ensure airport advertising remains relevant and engaging in the age of digital distraction?
So digital distraction is a reality.
Yeah.
We were talking about broadcasting, then we came to narrowcasting. Mobile was considered to be the last frontier of media fragmentation, and it facilitated what is called single casting. But you know what? Out of home can take media fragmentation even further and can do what is called point casting. So you are not the same, you may be the same person, but you're not the same persona. So psychographically, you are different persona. You are a different person as a father. You're a different person as a son. You're a different person as a husband. Similarly, when you are at airport, there are a lot of psychographic changes which are taking place. And you are anyway forced to interact with the environment. That is where you find this advertising. So handheld devices, of course, they keep you engaged. But at airport, the passenger, sometimes for her utilitarian needs, sometimes to break the monotony, and sometimes just to soak in the indulgent and very highly credible ambience, dips into the advertising everywhere.
Well
This
said.
has been our experience.
Great response. Thank you. So I have time for 3 more questions for you. My next question is, what challenges do airports face in balancing commercial interests with providing a positive passenger experience when it comes to advertising?
Airports are not constructed for commerce. Airports are constructed and run for only 2 things: passenger safety and passenger comfort. I'm talking about the land side. On air side, of course, it is aircraft's security and proper operation. But let's confine to the human world, land side area. Airports are meant for passenger safety and comfort. Having taken care of this and without interfering with their safety and their comfort, physical and mental in any way, we can indulge them, if we can add to their sense of enjoyment, indulgence, if we try to make the journey memorable. Because you know what? A journey has a purpose somewhere at the end.
Correct.
But what keeps going along with the journey is your effort to keep collecting memories. And advertising or some of these things, they aid in creating positive memories for you. And you remember these journeys. So we balance it this way. We don't allow advertising or anything else to come in the way of safety or convenience, comfort of the passenger.
Very well said. Thank you. And I must remember that. Because it's a very powerful statement you've just made. So I have time for 2 more questions. My next question is, how does cultural sensitivity play into planning of international airport advertising campaigns?
Both international and domestic.
Yeah.
We have to be extremely careful, and cultural diversities and predisposition towards different cultural symbols are so different. And nobody tells you but they react, respond, and they feel good or bad inside. So we are extremely careful to see that very sharply defined cultural identities don't make their way into the airport advertising. We continuously try to play at the median level, being thoroughly mindful that it does not offend even the most extreme of the people that we will be getting in the airport, both domestic and international. Of course, international challenge is bigger, but then you will see the advertising starts becoming more neutral, more product centric rather than an agenda centric.
Well said. And Shashi, my last question to you, and given the amazing knowledge you have on airports, branding, marketing, what future trends do you foresee in out-of-home and airport media and advertising?
Out of home is finding its new relevance. We are now today living in what is called a CPA regime, continuous partial attention. What was the handicap of out of home yesterday? Because it could not deliver block attention. People were reading newspapers for 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 40 minutes. They were watching TV for 1 hour, 1.5 hours. They were listening to radio for 1 hour, 2 hours, etc. So these are the block attentions. You had some of these super hit heroes, Times of India, Bombay, Hindustan Times, Delhi, The Hindu, Chennai. And you advertise there and you kind of almost got 60% of your penetration. Today, as I have said, sometimes else also, audience is slithering through the medium. This mobile has so many things into it. She does not have a control when she's watching a video, when she's reading a newspaper, when she starts reading a magazine, when she goes on to a commerce site, doing etc. etc.
Yeah.
In this milieu, out of home delivers guaranteed exposure. When we say out of home is not based on OTS principle, opportunity to see, which is about potentiality. We deliver audience on likelihood to see. If the audience is in the vicinity of my media, then only I tell you that I am delivering her. So out of home has become was relevant earlier, of course, in the middle times somewhere, but it is finding its new relevance again in a big way. With digital and static, with sensory marketing, experiential marketing. See, today lots of virtualization is happening. Lots of product parity is coming. So how do you break product parity? You see so much of product promotions, real cars, real products at the airport. You can feel it, touch it, sit into it. And that is the way to break this product parity. This is the way to get over this rampant virtualization of communication of product introduction, etc. So out of home and airport is actually a new antidote to this fluid world of digital displays, virtual interactions.
Yeah, what a great response. And on that note, Shashi, thank you so much for speaking to me about your journey. Thank you for speaking to me at such length about out of home. I've learned many new things from you today. Thank you for speaking to me about airport advertising. So many of us and all our viewers and listeners walk through airports without realizing the messaging that is constantly happening as we are walking through, the shopping areas or walking towards the gate. And I loved your comment that airports are meant for safety, security, and to create memories. I'll remember that. Thank you again for speaking to me, and good luck.
One last thing I want you to kind of include. People are generally not very positively predisposed towards advertising, but I think in a market economy, advertising should be treated as commercial news. And if you consume them, use them, it will make you successful as a consumer.
Very well said. Thank you so much, and all the best to you.
Thank you, Ashok. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the Brand Called You.